Hi, today we are going to do some proper mending and we're going to do the cheating method, that is without actually having to do any sewing. We're going to talk about rips and tears. So this is a lovely fabric, very beautiful but quite delicate and very easy to end up with a hole in it, either a rip like that or an L-shaped tear, which is quite likely to happen if you catch fabric on something. So there are very easy ways to fix this kind of fabric. In fact, probably better than sewing because it's such a delicate fabric that sewing would make it heavy. And what I'm going to use is this. And this is a fusible tape. It's basically a very thin layer of a glue which melts when you apply heat to it. So it is iron-on. You can find this tape online at any retailer, or you can buy it in a haberdashery. Its commercial name is Wonderweb, but if you just look for fusible tape, you will get something like this. So here we go. I'm going to turn my material to the wrong side, and you can see it's different on the other side, so you can see it. And there's my tear, and I'm going to cut a piece of tape just slightly bigger than the tear. I'm going to carefully lay it on, making sure that the torn edges of the fabric are closed up together. I'm going to lay it on. Now I'm not going to iron directly on this because this is glue, and when I iron it, it will melt. And you do not want it melting on your iron. So I'm going to use just simply a piece of greaseproof paper, or any kind of thinnish paper will do, but this doesn't stick. And then I'm going to take my iron. Now I'm not really ironing, I'm more pressing. So I'm just going to hold it in place for maybe 5 or 6 seconds, just to allow that fusible tape to melt. Okay. Leave it for a few seconds, just till it sets, and then very carefully peel away the paper, and there you have pretty much invisible repair. I don't know if you can see it, but I can't see it. The one thing that you have to remember if you have done this kind of repair is that, of course, if you iron it subsequently, then it will melt. So you have to remember where the mend is. If you've got a sort of V-shaped tear, an L-shaped tear like this, it's just the same procedure. Make sure you get the edges close up together. This time I'm going to use 2 pieces. And you can find this big, there it is. And press in place. Now this is perfect for very fine fabric like this one. It will not last forever, so you will have to be careful if you're washing that garment that it might come apart. And also you have to be very careful if you're ironing it. But it will give you an invisible mend. So what to do if you've got a tear in something that's a bit more robust than that fabric. Now here I've got a bit of chambray, and you can see that I have mended a little tear, but it's not invisible, and that's because with chambray, this is like denim type fabric, the weft thread is blue and the warp thread is white. So when you get a tear, you will always see some of the white. So there is a way of avoiding that problem. So here I have one that I've made a nice tear in earlier. You will also notice that you've got some threads fraying around the tear. And it's a good idea is to trim those off before you do anything. And to make this less visible and also a little more robust, I'm going to cut a small square of the same fabric. Now if you don't have the same fabric, if you choose something that's very similar in weight and colour, it will work just as well. So it's just a patch big enough to cover the spot. I'm going to round off the edges. And then I'm going to use the fusible web to attach this. Doesn't matter if it overlaps a little, but just make sure that it doesn't overlap the edge of the patch too much. So I've put it on the patch, I'm going to flip it over and press it in place. And hopefully this will provide a less visible mend, but also a slightly more secure one. The advantage of doing it this way is that, of course, if you have to iron the garment afterwards, you're not going to get glue on your iron because we have the patch in place, and it probably will last a bit longer as well. So once we've taken it off, there we are. Now you can still see a couple of little threads there, but we can trim those back. Now it's not going to be totally invisible. In fact, this one's showing the blue thread the other way, but it's a little more secure. So what if you've got an even heavier fabric? Right, so those methods work on light to medium weight fabrics, but what if you've got something chunkier, like a pair of jeans which are torn? There's a simple solution to that as well. You can buy a tape, like a fabric tape, which has got a glue on the back. It's probably just called Mending tape, and you can buy it in all sorts of different colours, and it's exactly the same procedure. So here we've got a nice little beautifully ready cut slit in the jeans. Take a piece of tape slightly bigger than the tear, and this time you are going to put it obviously behind the tear. We're going to iron it from the top, so you want to make sure that it's placed carefully underneath so that it's covering all the edges. And again, we're going to press. I seem to have lost my piece of paper, so I'm just going to use a little piece of fabric on the top just to make sure you don't get any glue on the bottom of your iron, which you certainly do not want to do, because then you'll have to clean your iron. So give it a good, this will need a little more time. If you buy this stuff, it will tell you what temperature the iron should be at. I normally use a sort of cotton setting, which I think is number 2 on most irons. Again, it will just need a little bit longer to adhere. And that should be it now. I'll take it off, and there we have the tear fixed. Again, you're going to get little threads, particularly with denim, but it's no big deal, it doesn't really show up very much. The other thing that you can do, which will give an even stronger bond, is to use something like this. This is Instant Bond textile adhesive. There are lots of different kinds of adhesives on the market that you can use for textiles, and I'm not going to explain to you how to use this one because each one has its own separate way of working, so just check the instructions. You would need to have some sort of patch on the back in order to use this, but you'll probably find that it's more secure and will last longer than these iron-on methods. But any of them will work, and they're very simple. They don't require any skill whatsoever, they don't require any sewing, and will make your clothes last much